Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for this Interfaith service for London Climate Action Week, which is being presented by South London Interfaith Group, of which I am the chair, and Faith Forum for London. And we're very grateful to everybody who has joined us today to take part in this service. And we ask you, please, everybody, we all please mute, and only the speakers should unmute when it's your turn to speak. And also, speakers, please remember to mute when you finish. Everybody has 5 minutes, so I hope you will keep within your time. But I have got a timer here, so I'll give you a warning on the screen, and you'll hear a bell if you run over. The whole event is going to be recorded, so if you don't wish to be on the screen, please turn your video off. So without any more ado, I'm going to pass over to Melina Mera from London Climate Action Week to talk to us about EcoPeace Middle East.
Thank you very much, John, and a very warm thanks to you and a welcome to everybody who's joining us this afternoon. It's our pleasure at London Climate Action Week to be working with the London Faith Forum, with the South London Faith Forum, and with faith leaders like John himself to have organised this first ever interfaith climate service during London Climate Action Week. We're delighted that we started London Climate Action Week in 2019. It's now grown to 240 events this year, but we started in 2019 with the UK's first Green Shabbat in partnership with Eco Synagogue and Rabbi Wittenberg, who you'll be hearing from a little bit later. And we are delighted that on this London Climate Action Week that we're working with such a wide collection of faith organisations in London, which of course is also the capital of faith in the United Kingdom. I'm delighted also to be here as an advisor to a very unique organisation based in the Middle East called EcoPeace Middle East. It was started more than 25 years ago by an Israeli, a Palestinian and a Jordanian to use environmental diplomacy to promote peacekeeping and peacemaking in the region. And over the course of the last quarter century, they have worked with the faith community, of course, a very, very important part of the world. They work in the Jordan Valley region, a region sacred to the world's leading faiths. But they've also been working with political leaders, business leaders, and youth in the area. Working on a master plan, working on a very exciting program over the last couple of years to promote water and solar diplomacy. I'll stop now, but I would invite you to check out their website, ecopeaceme.org for more information. And we hope to welcome EcoPeace Middle East during the course of the week to join in some of our other LCAW events. So I'll be now handing back over to you. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Marie. Our first speaker this afternoon is Dr. Ruth Valerio. She is the canon theologian at Rochester Cathedral and the Global Advocacy and Influencing Director of Tier Fund. So over to you, Ruth.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really good to be joining together in this way at the start of the Action Week for London, and so important for us as faiths to be meeting together. When we think about climate, we know that we will not be able to tackle our climate crisis unless faith groups are engaged. So at a global level, around 80% of the world's population adheres to the 5 biggest faiths that are in our world. And if we are going to see our climate crisis tackled, we have to engage people where they are and with the worldviews and the faith systems that they adhere to. So starting this week with an interfaith event is a very important way to start. So I'm delighted to be here joining with you. I want to tell you about a community in Recife in Brazil. And there's a slum community there that we support as Tier Fund, and they face terrible problems with plastic pollution. And we've been working and supporting a local church there that's there right in the heart of the slums to help them deal with that problem through, we've developed a livelihood scheme where some of the women there are engaged in recycling the plastic and turning it into things that can be sold, and also helping them find their voices for in terms of the local government and advocating and calling on the local authorities to be taking responsibility for the river. This is something that is right at the heart of what the local church there is doing, but might not be thought of as a regular activity for a local church to do. Maybe you think of churches as being engaged primarily in other activities. Why is that church involved in issues of plastic and recycling and calling on the government and using their voice in this way? Well, it's because of some fundamental beliefs that we hold as Christians. The first is that all people are made in God's image and are precious to God. And all people are worthy of being looked after and helped to escape particular situations that they are in. And in fact, all the way through the scriptures, both the Hebrew scriptures, which I know Rabbi Jonathan will be talking about, and then into the Christian scriptures, we see a call to be taking care of people who are in poverty and to be responding to issues of injustice and oppression. As we think about climate, we know that our current climate crisis is impacting the poorest people the most, both in London, in the UK, and around the world. And so as Christians, we are engaged in climate issues because we worship a God of justice. The church in Recife is also involved in these issues because we believe that this world has been created by God. That's not an anti-evolutionary statement, but we believe that however the world came into existence, God is the primary motivator and the source behind that. And this world that God has created is good. Right at the start of the scriptures, we're told that God looked at all that he had made and said, it is very good. God loves this world. God isn't only interested in human beings, God is interested in the whole of his creation. And as Christians, we believe that Jesus died for his whole creation, humans included. And so we are engaged in issues of poverty. We're engaged as Christians as in issues of wider environmental care, both very focused on the climate crisis, but wider than that as well, because we see these things fundamentally in the scriptures that are the framework that give us the framework for our lives. And I'm going to pause there.
Thank you, Ruth. That's perfect. Well within the 5 minutes. So now we go to Father Tom OBrien, who is parish priest of a Catholic parish in Hitchin, Hertfordshire. He's a member of a religious congregation, Augustinians of the Assumption, committed to living simply and working to heal the harm done to creation. He's a member of the North Hearts Interfaith Forum, working on a project to plant trees in East Hertfordshire, and a member of the Justice and Peace Commission in the Roman Catholic Diocese of Westminster, and of the Care for the Climate Subcommission. His parish is a Live Simply parish, and they offer recycling for the town and surroundings, and they raised around £2,000 for charity from recycling each year. So welcome, Father Tom, and over to you.
Hi, hello everybody. I just want to build on what Ruth has just said. And while I'm speaking, I'm going to show you this sort of PowerPoint presentation. You could read that and you don't have to listen to me. But first of all, I want to say we're coming together today. Oh dear, right. United in a passionate concern for our common home and sharing our insights and beliefs is precisely what Pope Francis wanted to happen in 2015 when he wrote a letter to everyone in the world called Laudato Si, praise be to God. Recognizing that we face a catastrophic crisis, Pope Francis publicly proclaimed and clarified our deep concern for the destruction happening to our planet. He also recognized that this crisis can only be addressed together and globally. Whatever our differences of faith or of non-faith, we are all united in our growing concern for the future of our planet. The letter spells out the challenges we face clearly and succinctly and recognizes that we need to act now before it's too late. We believe God called us to be stewards of creation. And the letter says that's about cultivating, plowing, working, as well as caring, protecting, overseeing, and preserving the natural world. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. Yes, we can take what we need for subsistence, but we have a duty to protect the earth and to ensure its fruitfulness for coming generations. It's a call to work with creation that is only too willing to work with us. The letter recognizes we urgently need a humanism capable of bringing together the different fields of knowledge, including economics, in the service of a more integral and integrated world. Throughout the letter, care for the earth is conjoined with care for the poor. They are indispensably connected. So in Laudato Si, the human environment and the natural environment deteriorate together. We cannot adequately combat environmental degradation unless we attend to causes related to human and social degradation. In fact, the deterioration of the environment and of society affects the most vulnerable people on the planet. Both everyday experience and scientific research shows the gravest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. Our exploitation and abuse of the resources of the earth have led to increased tsunamis, a continuing global rise in temperature that affects climate in a way that the poor, who depend on the land for sustenance, face long-term droughts, leading to a lack of clean water and starvation. And just think, 25,000 people die of starvation every day. Laudato Si goes on to say, there can be no renewal of our relationship with nature without a renewal of humanity itself. There can be no ecology without an adequate anthropology. We are called to an inner conversion, to a radical change in lifestyle, to living more simply, being less wasteful, to recycle and reuse, to be more generous to those in need. We must urgently lobby the government not to decrease our overseas support aid, but even increase it. If I have time, a word of hope. In Laudato Si, the Pope says, yet all is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable of rising above themselves, choosing what is good and making a new start. We are able to take an honest look at ourselves, to acknowledge our deep dissatisfaction, and to embark on new paths. No system can completely suppress our openness to what is good, true, and beautiful. I appeal to everyone throughout the world not to forget this dignity which is ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Tom. The wonderful summary of Laudato Si. In a few moments, I'm a Laudato Si animator myself, so I'm very keen on getting that message out. So thank you very much. We now turn to our Muslim friend, who is Zara Kanani. Zara is a volunteer and an active member of the Haidari Islamic Center in Streatham, having been born and raised within the community. She is a solicitor by profession and has a passion for volunteering and community work with an emphasis on youth development. Over to you, Zara.
Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, first of all, to the organisers for inviting me to speak this afternoon and to share some of Islam's teachings on this particular topic, which sadly are not always given as much prominence as they deserve. There are several references in the Holy Quran to the creation of the universe, and one of the most oft quoted is that which is found in chapter 7, verse 54, in which God says, "Indeed, your Lord is God, who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then established himself on the throne. He makes the day and the night overlap in rapid succession. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, all subjected by his command. The creation and the command belong to him alone." There is a fundamental belief in Islam that all of creation is created in a natural state of submission to the Creator God. And it is only because creation follows precisely the course that God has set out for it that we have balance and harmony throughout the universe, or what we commonly know or refer to as the laws of nature, or the natural order of the universe. As God says in chapter 24, verse 41, "See you not that it is God, whose praises are celebrated by all beings in the heavens and on the earth, and by the birds with extended wings. Each one knows its prayer and glorification, and God is aware of what they do." All of the creation of God, including the earth itself, is therefore treated as being sacred, alive, and conscious. We, the human beings, are ourselves created, as the Quran says, from dust, being the minerals and the elements that are found within the earth. And the earth, according to Islamic teachings, is the vessel for life and provides sustenance for all of God's creatures. The Quranic teachings are supplemented by the traditions, sayings, and actions of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, and his holy family. And there are numerous traditions from these personalities that teach us that the planting of a tree from which any person, bird, or animal eats or benefits, even if it does no more than provide shade on a hot day, is treated as a form of ongoing charity for which there will be everlasting reward. The Islamic teachings are clear that human beings are a unique life form created in a very special way, with unique gifts and abilities unlike other creatures, such as a soul and conscience, knowledge and free will. And God tells us in chapter 17, verse 70, that verily we have honored the children of Adam. And it is for this reason, their superiority over other creation, that human beings are given the title of Khalifa, or steward, or trustee of God on the earth, whose role it is to protect and preserve the creation of God and to maintain its balance. Chapter 6, verse 65 teaches us that it is He, God, who has made you stewards of the earth and has raised some of you above others in degrees of rank, that He may try you through what He has given you. In giving this role to the best of His creation, God constantly warns the human being to refrain from excessiveness and corruption, as these are ungodly and not befitting of a steward of God. But despite this elevated position that we've been given and numerous warnings given by God, human beings have disrespected God's law, leading to an imbalance in the laws of nature. And it's encouraging to see that over the last few years, there has been a recognition of this role of the human being as a steward of God. And here at the Haidari Islamic Center, we've started to take some very small steps with regards to the protection of the environment. Most particularly in the month of Ramadan, when we break our fast together, we can have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 worshippers per night, sometimes more. We've become more active in recycling our food waste. We've introduced reusable cutlery and biodegradable plates. People are encouraged to bring their own mugs in which to drink our famous chai, our tea. Plastic water bottles are no longer given out to worshippers, but branded cups and bottles have been introduced instead. Small baby steps, but every little helps. The protection and preservation and our responsibility towards God's creation is now a fundamental part of the syllabus in our Saturday schools. As Imam Ali, the successor of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, says, "Partake of the earth gladly, for so long as you are the benefactor, not a despoiler. Be a cultivator and not a destroyer. The whole of Islam is summed up in one tradition of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, in which he says, Islam is nothing more than to obey God and to serve his creation. I end with a prayer from Imam Sajjad, the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, in which he says, praise belongs to God, who chose us for the good qualities of creation, granted us ample provision, and appointed for us excellence through domination over all creation. Every one of his creatures submits to us through his power and obeys us through his might. O Lord, let good flow out from our hands towards your creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And it's very good to hear about the practical actions that you're taking at the mosque. Very much appreciate that. Thank you. And now to our Jewish friend who's been mentioned several times already, Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, who is the senior rabbi of Masorti Judaism and co-founder of LCAW Synagogue. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. And I will screen share. And I want to say, first of all, that every single word I've heard rings true in my heart, and it's so wonderful and special to be together. I'm focusing very much on London and representing LCAW Synagogue. And I want to say I'm going to talk about trees and local wildlife and biodiversity. I'm so lucky to have a garden and kind of a bird bath and bird feeders and love watching. And people have found this key to their physical, spiritual, and mental health in the big cities, particularly this capital, but all around the world at this time. But if I take a scene, this is 1 minute walk for me. This is where a whole load of our neighbors used to work. I know we need housing, but I kind of wonder about the foxes, the hedgehogs, the birds, London's biodiversity that used to be there. And so I'm so happy to see, I think this is Sadiq Khan there, planted with children in our capital city. And if you can read the text, the Bible says, the book of Deuteronomy, when you go to battle, even then, you must not cut down trees. And the phrase from that, Baal Tashchit, don't destroy, has become the byword of Jewish environmentalists. Don't destroy. It's been expanded from fruit trees to all trees, to nature itself, to any form of needless waste. It's so wonderful to hear about the mosque doing exactly what we're doing in the synagogue, not using disposables anymore. All those small steps that lead us not to waste, but to plant. And I want to say to Father Tom that I'm going to get out my spade and join him if he'll permit me to join in planting, because the more we do together, the better. That's the Jewish organization I'm part of that's planting, but I'm going to move on to talk about biodiversity, even in a big city. And I was lucky that this is New York rather than London, but that's what came up. I'm useless at PowerPoints. The Torah says, again, Deuteronomy, if you chance on a bird's nest in a tree or on the ground with fledglings or eggs and the mother there, shoo away the mother first before you take the eggs. Now, we wouldn't want to do either. We wouldn't want to take the fledglings. We shouldn't take the eggs. But when I asked one of my teachers, why shoo away the mother? He said, you must never exploit the vulnerability of nature. And another 13th century teacher, already in the 13th century, said, it's about biodiversity. Take the mother and you threaten the species. So wherever we can, in our homes, in our cities, whatever we can do, we are partners in this world with the rest of creation. We are learning all the time about our deep interdependence. And so these are two things for London: planting and not destroying, increasing its biodiversity, and that'll make it better for human beings together with our fellow creation. For we share the same birthday. The 6th day of creation is the birthday of all life, mammal and human. Finally, a short prayer from the Zohar, the 13th century, 12th, 13th century text of Jewish mysticism. The world to come cares for this tree, which is the tree of all life, watering it and preparing it through its work, crowning it with crowns, never at any time withholding its streams. Faith depends on this tree. We have the power, God forbid, to cut that tree down, and we have the power to help plant it. I think together on this call, we are all planters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Jonathan. That's wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think biodiversity is the most important thing, and we're so lucky to have gardens and parks in London. we should be grateful for what we've got and make more. We should have much more. It's too easy to build on these vacant sites. We're running well ahead of time here, which is wonderful. Everybody's being very, very good about giving within the 5 minutes. So now we turn to our Buddhist friend, who is Robert Hareb from SGI. I have a long association with SGI in Brixton, actually. Robert Hareb has been the General Director of SGI UK since December 2013. Before that, he spent 16 years as a barrister in Chambers at London's Inner Temple. So over to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you for the invitation to be part of this event today. Soon after the Buddha's enlightenment, he started to teach his followers about how all things in life are connected in a great web of overlapping and mutually interacting elements. This connection is explained in different ways, whether through principles such as dependent origination, or sometimes also called interdependent arising, as well as a beautiful visual metaphor called Indra's net. This metaphor describes a net where at every knot there's tied a brightly colored jewel. Perhaps you can imagine that in your mind. An enormous net shimmering with the colors of the jewels tied at every knot. In each of the jewels is reflected every single one of the other jewels. When any cord of the net is pulled, each and every jewel throughout the net sparkles beautifully. There is no part of the net that is not affected. This metaphor tells us that in life we are all connected, and our relationship with the environment is also intimately close. From the Buddhist perspective, it's a mistake to think that I and the environment are in some way separate. Yet that is what many people and cultures have started to believe in recent centuries, and many do think now. I was looking for a picture to illustrate this principle, and I found this image of a cobweb. And hopefully that will show there. So a shot of a cobweb with a jewel of dew at every knot, which is a beautiful way of using something from the natural world to illustrate this point. Each of the drops of dew, you can see, has a rim of light and is like a lens on what is on the other side of the web. If one strand of the web were to be touched, the vibration would run right through every one of the drops of dew in the cobweb. This principle of Indra's net is also used to explain that one person can positively affect the whole web of interconnected life. The Buddha explained that because humans are capable of both wonderful, compassionate, and creative actions, as well as, unfortunately, selfish and destructive ones, what is in our hearts as we move about the world is reflected in what happens to the environment. In one of the Buddhist sutras, the Buddha taught, if the minds of the living beings are impure, their land is also impure. But if their minds are pure, so is their land. There are not two lands, pure or impure in themselves. The difference lies solely in the good or evil of our minds. So the energy that I believe needs to course through the web of life at this time more than ever is much less of the greed, anger, and foolishness, which have created many of the issues we see affecting the environment and the other beings we share it with, and instead see more of the compassion, wisdom, and courage which the Buddha taught that we're all able to draw from within our own lives. In Buddhism, greed, anger, and foolishness are known as the three poisons inherent in life, and compassion, wisdom, and courage are the qualities exemplified by the actions of the Buddha, which we can all reveal as well from within our lives. This means, as my Buddhist teacher Daisaku Ikeda said once, in a dialogue he held with the British historian Arnold Toynbee when they were discussing environmental issues, we must adopt the standpoint that the awareness of the dignity of life must be the basic principle on which all our actions rest. Members of the SGI UK Buddhist community are always reflecting on our relationship with the environment and what we can do to protect our precious planet and create a resilient framework for the benefit of all life. We're gearing up for COP26 in Glasgow in November, and we are looking for ways to introduce the Buddhist perspective into the discourse on the climate crisis. We've been running a series of webinars, and the next one is on Wednesday evening, this Wednesday coming up at 7 p.m. And details of how to join this are on the SGI UK website. So my prayer is for me to diminish the effect of those three poisons in my life and to encourage instead the inner transformation, what we call the human revolution, that will reveal more of the qualities of the Buddha, and that more and more people, whatever their faith position, will also cherish the dignity of life. The way that we do this is to celebrate and nurture the enlightened aspect of all life in ourselves, in other people, in the world around us, and in our Buddhist tradition, this involves
Robert, I think we lost the last two sentences because you got muted. So if we could unmute you and just hear that again.
Okay, last two sentences.
I think so.
So my prayer is that I diminish the effect of the three poisons in my life and encourage instead the inner transformation, or what we call the human revolution, that will reveal more of the qualities of the Buddha, and that more and more people, whatever their faith position, will also cherish the dignity of life. The way that we do this is to celebrate and nurture the enlightened aspect of all life in ourselves, in other people, and in the world around us. And in our Buddhist tradition, this involves chanting the phrase Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which we believe stimulates and activates this creative and dynamic, positive and compassionate energy of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for repeating that. Apologies for cutting you off. And now we turn to our Zoroastrian friend, who is Vista Kosravi. She recently completed a Master's in Environmental Studies, and you're most welcome, Vista. So over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak today, and I will be speaking about Zoroastrianism and the environment. So hopefully most of you have heard about Zoroastrianism, and for those of you who haven't, here's a quick introduction. So Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, and originated in ancient Persia. We believe the choice of good over evil has cosmic importance and strive to follow the righteous path through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Zarathustra, our prophet, emphasizes our free will to make choices between right and wrong while developing righteous thinking. So we have a concept of 7 higher entities and like spirits and angels, which hold moral qualities that are represented on this planet by 7 creations, which are fire, representing truth and honesty, the animal kingdom, representing rightful thinking, air and metal, representing motivation, earth, which represents motivation, devotion, water and morality, the plant kingdom, representing immortality, and being totally imbued with all these qualities brings you closest to God and achieving the goodness of God's creations. So the sacred elements, earth, air, and water, are to be kept free from pollution through humans working in harmony with the elements, as humans and animals need air to breathe, water to drink, fire to cook, food and earth to grow plants for their survivals. So the sacred elements and the importance of seasonal changes and the sun's cycles are celebrated in Zoroastrianism throughout the year. For example, we celebrate the spring equinox, which is called Nowruz. This is the start of the new year, which is celebrated all over the world. A main custom of Nowruz is to lay the Hafsin table. So this is a table which we lay with 7 gifts of nature and the items that signify renewal, happiness, wealth, good health, or anything else that you desire for the new year. So for example, the eggs, we represent rebirth and fertility. There's loads of different things we put on this table. And we also have loads of other celebrations, including Yalda, which is the winter solstice, Tirgan, the celebration of water, and Mehragan, which is the harvest celebration. And during all these celebrations, we have communal prayers and specific customs we do, followed by food and drinks and even dances and music. So in Zoroastrianism, we also have certain customs and traditions which work towards protecting and enhancing our environment. For example, when a child is born, we plant a fruit tree, and when a death occurs, we plant an evergreen tree in their memory, as we believe life goes on in the plant kingdom. Also, in Persian history, the kings always promoted lavish gardens and forests full of running water and flowers. And the beauty and harmony of these gardens were captured in many carpet and Persian carpet designs, so you can watch out for that. As I have a background in environmental studies, it astonishes me that Zoroastrianism thousands of years ago understood the importance of working together with the environment, and it's built into many of our customs to preserve the surrounding elements. And if a core manifestation of Zoroastrian principles are adopted by many, I think we will definitely be able to achieve our sustainable goals. So what we have done in our community towards a green recovery, so like others said, we try to use as much reusable cutlery and plates, biodegradable plates. We try to take a guest list from the majority of ceremonies to estimate how many people will come to our event, to order the right amount of food and refreshments. Also, we plan family event days, teaching young ones about water conservation through fun activities like painting and gardening. We also have a canal cleanup every few months with the young adults, and we plan a weekend getaway to the Asher Center in the Forest of Dean, which the young learn about sustainability, and it connects many people of different backgrounds to make a positive, sustainable change in their community. So thank you for listening, and I hope I didn't run over time.
Thank you very much, Vista. Especially, I liked your slides at the end, which gave us a very good idea of what you're doing. Thank you. Now our humanist friend is Richard Norman, who is a patron of Humanist UK and Secretary of Humanist Climate Action. So over to you, Richard.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As a humanist, I want to ask you today to join me in a pledge as a shared act of faith. Humanists tend to be rather wary of the word faith. Very often they make a contrast between faith and reason. And they tend to say we shouldn't accept anything on faith, we should always base our beliefs on reason. To this, people of faith typically respond by saying that when they're talking about faith, they're not talking about believing without reason. They're talking not about faith that, but faith in the sense of faith in a person, in the sense of putting your trust in someone or something. And humanists, of course, know what it is to have faith in a person. When you put your faith in someone, you know that they may let you down, you know that there are no guarantees of rational prediction, but the act of faith in a person is an act of commitment and trust. People also talk about faith in humanity, and by that they mean something more than just faith in individual human beings. They're talking about a faith that can collectively inspire us to join with one another to meet challenges. And again, faith in this sense is not a rational prediction that we're bound to succeed. Again, there are no guarantees. But we recognize that we have to have faith that together we can succeed. And that faith in humanity is a commitment to what we all share. Now, for many of you, of course, the inspiration to work together comes from something beyond us. People are inspired, many of you, by a faith in God working through us. But we all agree, I think, that action on climate change has to be human action, for which humans have to take responsibility. We can't offload that responsibility onto a deity. It's a shared human responsibility, as those words from Pope Francis earlier reminded us. Why faith in humanity? Some people might say, well, it's humanity that's the problem. Some people might even say the natural world would be better off without us. But is that something we should rest our hopes on? Should we be looking forward to what people have referred to as the end of the Anthropocene age? Should we be looking forward to the extinction of humanity, whereupon nature can just resume its course without us? I think that all of us here would see that as failure. What we value is the right relationship between humanity and nature, that interconnection of which Robert reminded us just now from a Buddhist perspective. Human beings and the natural world are part of a single web of life. As human beings, we recognize our stewardship for nature, to which Zara referred earlier and to which many religions refer. The idea that the natural world is in our care as human beings. So I'm asking you then to join me in pledging faith in humanity, a commitment to live up to that human responsibility for the natural world. The exigencies of Zoom mean that it has to be a silent pledge, but let's together share in an act of faith. In the past, human beings have risen to great challenges. People of all faiths and beliefs working together have tackled the challenges of slavery and of poverty and of oppression. Inspired by visions of social justice, human beings have worked together for racial and sexual equality. And so when we're faced by the challenges of climate action, let us again commit ourselves to a faith in our shared humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm sure we would all be happy to pledge that, even if it is silent. And thank you for summing up so well what other people have said. Thank you. And now we turn to an old friend who is a great supporter of South London Interfaith Group, who is Sikh, Balbir Singh Bakshi. He's been chairman, director, executive committee member and governor of a school, and he has a number of awards, nominations and recognition received from 2 prime ministers and the Mayor of London and many more. And he has joined in 3 multi-faith forums, including South London Interfaith Group, and has a nomination for a Special Achievement Award by the Mayor of London. In fact, he was the only person to be selected for this coveted nomination in the whole of the Greenwich Borough. So over to you, Balbir. You're going to need to unmute. No, we still can't hear you. You need to unmute, Balbir.
Hello. Now it's
Got
okay?
you now. Yeah, I've got you.
Yes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to you, all of you. Today, I will at the outset, I will just read a small hymn from our holy book, Guru Granth Sahib, and then I will translate it into English, and then I will explain the Sikh perspective from the subject matter we are discussing today. So first, I will read it in Punjabi language, and then I will translate it in English. पवन गुरु पानी पिता माता तरत महत दिवस रात दोदाई दाया खेले सगल जगत चंगियां बुरियाइयां वाचे धर्म हदूर करमी आपो अपनी के नेड़े के दूर जिन्नी नाम ते आया गेम शकत कहाल नानक ते मकुजले खेती छुट्टी नाल. The English translation. Air is the teacher, water is the father, and earth is the great mother of all. We should not throw any dirt or pollute our mother, that is earth. Day and night are the two nurses in whose lap all the world is at play. Good deeds and bad deeds, the record is read out in the presence of the Lord of religion. According to their own actions, some are drawn closer and some are driven farther away. Those who have meditated on the God, the name of the Lord, and departed after having worked by the sweat of their brows, O Nanak, their faces are radiant in the court of Lord, and many are saved along with them. Now I will discuss regarding energy crisis from the sixth and the sixth perspective. It is very simple. Reduce the demand on energy. Our faith is a great green faith. Earth is designated as our physical mother, and we have the obligation to take care of it. We have the duty to leave a better world for our next generation. And reducing our demand at the consumer level is the best way of to solve the global crisis of energy and the environment. Most of the Sikhs have shut their clothes dryer with so much of solar heat outside, thus reducing the dependence on fossil fuels. So by doing this, we save energy of 20%. We have planned for few volunteers for planting trees around the house and gardens to purify the atmosphere. We have also started the habit of carpooling, reduce speeds and acceleration, well-inflated tires and clean air filters. By doing this, we save 10 to 30% of fuel consumption on the car. We try to buy locally manufactured goods even if we have to pay extra. Shipping overseas pollutes the environment, kills wildlife, and is bad for the local economies. Reduced flying and foregoing of expensive results in energy saving of about 75%. We try to stop international shopping destinations. Reducing, reusing, and recycling is the mantra we are more than happy to share with the world. We have literally stopped visiting shopping malls unless we must have something that was not available online. It used to be that I would go to malls and buy something I absolutely did not set out for. This leaves with us more than a money to invest into greening and other community projects. In the majority Sikh state of Punjab, India, people have in their big factories fixed silencers to avoid and stop the spread of smoke, polluting the atmosphere. These are, in short, the efforts which the Sikh community plans to do to save the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Lots of practical advice there. Thank you. Now we have two members of the Jain community who have joined us. Varsha Dodia, she currently works with the NHS CNWL Trust, Mental Health and Community as a Service Improvement Manager. She also takes an active part with NHS Harrow and Harrow Council, North West London Integrated Care, and the wider NHS as a lay partner advisor. Varsha is past chair of Harrow Interfaith, a member of Harrow Sacre, and represents One Jain at various events. She was also a trustee at Interfaith Network and contributed to making the Planting for Peace project a success. This was to commemorate the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. She is a passionate campaigner for women's education and wishes women's voices to be heard for climate change. Her fellow Jain, Ali Shah, will say the prayer. So thank you, Varsha.
Sorry. Thank you everyone for today's opportunity to present the Jain Perspective on climate change. And I'm presenting on behalf of One Jain, which is 30 Jain organizations in the UK coming together. We had a really beautiful event that planted a small number of trees in a Harrow recreation ground. So this is a local initiative, and the Jain community kind of pledged £10. And we partnered with Trees for Cities. And for me, planting trees in cities is now really paramount because the air quality has direct relationship with the way our health is going to be impacted. We see around very busy streets and around schools that children are suffering because of poor air quality. So this is not just climate issue outside, it's on our doorstep. We had lots of different people, dignitaries come to plant in the recreation ground. And if you can see this picture, it was really buzzing. So we planted 1,000 trees in this park. And the beauty was there were grandchildren, parents, grandparents, friends, all involved to get this project together. We had over 150 people there and lots of volunteers. This is a young person. So you can imagine if we start with the young now, really getting them to take the ownership of climate change and really working in their local areas, I think we can go a long way to addressing some of the issues around climate change and educating them. This is another one, working together. I think it is about partnerships. It's about raising a cause and partnering with our local communities. There are charities who support this, working with, across the mayoralty in London that we will actually achieve for London and for the wider community and the world. Mahatma Gandhi is one of really revered person for non-violence. And he was actually influenced by one of our Jain teachers, Srimad Rajchandra. So here for his 150th birth anniversary, the Jain community really came together to commemorate him. And this is our local MP, Gareth Thomas. So there is an all-party parliamentary group for Jains, and he's the chair. So he came and supported planting these trees. And we had also local councillors who supported us, the Harrow councillors. And in the center, we've got the then vice, from the High Commission of India. Here is a picture of a beautiful Jain temple in the outskirts of London. It's in Porter's Bar. So if you are on M25, it's in the North Ho area. And this temple and the site sits on 80 acres. It's really a green belt area. So we've only built on a very small part, but it's set in a beautifully landscaped gardens. And around that, we have conserved the area as natural beauty, leaving it for nature. So why do Jains really think so highly about nature? We have a doctrine which it says, Parasparo Pagraho Jivanam. All life is connected. And this is the guiding principle for a Jain life. Because whatever you do, you are impacting on everything that happens. Mahavira preached about the environment in the first book in Acharanga Sutra. And 3 things: no waste, no overuse, no abuse, no pollution. So I'll hand over to Anish to say the prayer now. Anish,
Okay.
please unmute.
I will share my screen if okay, so hello everyone. I've got 3 prayers and they are all Jain prayers, and I've given the English translation on the screen for you all to read. Khame mi savva jiva khamantu me, mithi me savva bhuesu, vir majham nakenvi, mi chami dukhadam. Shivamastu sarva jagata parita, nirata bhavantu bhutagana, dosha prayantu nasham, sarvatra sukhi bhavatu loka. Sarva mangala mangalyam, sarva kalyana karanam, pradhanam sarva dharmanam, jainam jainti shashanam, jainam jainti shashanam. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Archer and Anish. Lovely, beautiful. Lovely to have some singing. Thank you. Just before we go over to Robin, I'm just wondering if Father Tom is with us. I think he is. I know he was going to do a share screen and it didn't happen. I mean, Father Tom, are you willing to do that at the very end? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So if you do that after Bishop Carraway, that would be lovely.
Okay.
Thank you. So now to our pagan friend Robin Hearn. He is a polytheist who was born in London but now lives in Suffolk. He is an author, poet, storyteller and university lecturer. He has been involved in interfaith work for over 3 decades. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you. The word pagan comes from the Latin root paganus, meaning of the place. The pagan religions were ones rooted in the sanctity of specific places, valleys, mountains, woodlands, seashores, etc., where people can sense what the ancient Romans referred to as the noumena, that wondrous sense of ineffable holiness, beauty, and awe that pervades certain locations. Paganism, in its numerous manifestations, embraces animism, the understanding that the world is filled with a myriad of sapient beings. For pagans, ancient and modern, the trees, rocks, rivers, and meadows are as alive, feeling, and thinking as any human. To move through the world is to negotiate with the needs, hopes, dreams, fears, concerns, loves, and hates of untold numbers of humans, dogs, cats, horses, trees, streams, and all of the other entities with which we share this planet. There is an ancient legend that repeats in variations around the world, which says that in the very distant past, humans could understand the languages spoken by the other creatures. However, we lost that capacity for various reasons, frequently our own stupidity, and now are largely oblivious to the world around us, and imagine that our academics are terribly clever when they have weighty discussions about whether other animals can experience suffering and distress. It's worth remembering that it was only a short time ago that the forebears of these intellectuals were debating whether women had souls, or if people with different coloured skins to themselves were actually human beings or not. Such conversations, of course, still go on in some parts of the world. When we struggle to comprehend that other humans are actually people, is it any great surprise that so many of us struggle to stretch the notion of personhood outside the human species, let alone to the realms of plants or landscapes? As pagans, we seek to recognize this wider biosphere, to encourage others to value the diversity of life and to acknowledge our place at the table, one species amongst many. To improve the world, we must listen to others and share our own stories. We must also sustain hope that our efforts count and not give in to fear or despair. Plant a tree even if you will not live long enough to sit in its shade. Now, rather than a prayer in the more usual sense, I'd like to share with you half of a poem by Oscar Wilde. It's half because of the pressures of time, not because the second half isn't very good. It's his poem entitled Pan. O goat-foot god of Arcady, this modern world is grey and old, and what remains to us of thee? No more the shepherd lads in glee throw apples at thy wattled fold, O goat-foot god of Arcady. Not through the laurels can one see thy soft brown limbs, thy beard of gold, and what remains to us of thee. And dull and dead our Thames would be, for here the winds are chill and cold, O goat-foot god of Arcady. Then keep the tomb of Hellas, thine olive woods, thine vine-clad wold, and what remains to us of thee. Though many an unsung elegy sleeps in the reeds, our rivers hold, O goat-foot god of Arcady. What remains to us of thee? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you. And last but by no means least, Bishop Caraway. Wahin Caraway Dogu is a Nigerian-born Church of England bishop and former medical doctor. He has been the Bishop of Woolwich, an area bishop in the Diocese of Southwark, since his consecration on the 17th of March 2017. So over to you, Bishop Caraway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for this amazing work you've done today, bringing all of us together. As has been said by all the previous speakers, we are together in one humanity, God's creation. And we all share together, as was said by our sister at the beginning, because 80% of our world's population are people of one faith or the other. And if there's going to be any human change at all, any change of hearts and minds, it has to be led by faith leaders and no faith leaders as well. So thank you so much for all that's been said. I just want to share very briefly with you some of my slides as I share my screen. Can you see it? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, we can. Yes.
As we say, we believe, as has been said by many previous speakers, Father Tom and my sister from Tear Fund, and all the various speakers, the Islamic representative, the Muslim, the Buddhist, the Jewish, Rabbi, we all believe that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Do that because our scripture, our holy book, the scripture says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And this is not an anti-evolutionary statement, but it is just to say that at the beginning, God started it before anything else that you may want to believe happened. And that's our point of view, and that's where I start. But for us as members of the Church of England, we have a document called the 5 Marks of Mission, and that's tied into our belief that God did not only just create, but when we look around us, we can see that the heavens declare his glory, and the firmament shows his handiwork. And like the hands of a creator, an artist that's created something, And every time you see the created art piece or artwork, you think about the person who created it. You think about their gifts, their talents, their character maybe, and their personality. So for us as Christian people of the Church of England, we believe in the 5 marks of mission, and one of which, number 5, states categorically that we are to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the earth. Why do we believe this? We believe this because on the 6th day of creation, God rested on the 7th. But just before that, he said to Adam and Eve, look after the earth, sustain it, preserve it, replenish it, and procreate. But what has happened is that since God gave that wonderful instruction to Adam, humanity fell into sin, and our evil imaginations have created the problems we are talking about today. But thank God that God has caused redemption to come through his son, Jesus Christ, who did not only come to die for the sins of humanity, but also to redeem creation. And so as Christians, we believe very passionately that we have a responsibility to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation, to sustain the earth, and to renew the earth, because this is man's creation responsibility from the beginning, when God started it all. So for us as a church, we ask them, what are you doing about it? We in Southwark have been declared what you call an eco-diocese. That is a diocese that is concerned about climate change. A diocese concerned about climate stability. A diocese that is concerned about safeguarding God's creation. So we have been certificated as an eco-diocese, and we have an eco policy in place and staff that have been appointed to carry this out. We have a whole department called the Department of Justice, Peace, and the Integrity of Creation. And we work round the clock to maintain the safeguarding of creation, God's creation in our world. We have also encouraged lots of our parishes to become designated eco-churches. And an eco-church is a church that is committed to safeguard the integrity of creation, to sustain and renew the life of the earth through their everyday practice. Everyday practices that will involve things like recycling, reusing materials that have been used before, using economy-like bulbs, using recyclable utensils for our receptions, concerned about economic justice in our world, and maintaining the sustainability of our economic projects so that the rich does not marginalize the poor, or the poor does not suffer the effects of the ignorance of the rich in our world. And as part of that, we are linked to dioceses in Zimbabwe, where we are actively involved with them in their everyday lives and helping out to make sure that we all together sustain God's creation. You remember recently, about a year ago, we had the floods in Mozambique. They affected some parts of Zimbabwe, and we sent some relief to them to help to right the situation. We have also involved our young people and our youth, our children in our schools, our youth groups, also involved with it. As our eco-designated churches, we're involved round the clock in promoting the values of the diocese to safeguard and sustain creation. We also work in collaboration with other ecumenical partners and other non-Christian organizations and other faith groups as well. Just ensuring that in our group called the Churches Together in South London, we had a big event very recently on climate sustainability. And we do all that we do to promote the safeguarding and sustaining of creation. And just to finish, a prayer for us today. Let us pray. Oh Lord, grant us grace to grow deeper in our resolve and care for creation. Oh Lord, help us to recognize the sacredness of all of your creatures as signs of your wondrous love. Oh Lord, help us turn from our self-consumption of resources meant for all and see the impacts of our choices on the poor and vulnerable, so that we may continue to share not only in love or out of necessity, but out of the generosity of your call on our lives. Amen. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. That was a wonderful. I learnt a lot. Thank you. I think we've all learnt a lot this afternoon, and we've seen so much in common and how much we can do together. The more we do together, the more we will achieve. So thank you very much for that. So I'm just going to do my thank yous, and then after that, perhaps Father Tom can share his screen, which will be our ending this afternoon. My first thank you is to Jeremy Riddell from Humanist UK, who's very kindly acted as host and kept us all on the straight and narrow. From Faith Forum for London, Jeevan and Megan were both very helpful in finding speakers. And I'd like to thank all of our speakers, because you've all kept within the time. You've all given us what I asked for, which was actually what your faith or tradition believes about creation, and also the practical actions that you're actually undertaking. So I'm very grateful to you all for that. And finally, thank you to everybody who's joined us today. At one stage, we had 31 people, which is very encouraging. And of course, the recording will be available on our website, South London Interfaith Group, and Facebook. And it'll also be available through London Climate Action Week. So thank you all very much indeed. And Melanie, did you want to say something?
I wanted to thank you. Thank you very much, John, for your leadership in bringing everyone together. This has been such a rich set of presentations, such a respectful exchange of views, and I'm so pleased that we recorded it and that we will be able to make it available to many, many others. So a thank you to all of you from us. And it's a reminder when we have these interfaith dialogues that there is such a wealth of experience and community to bring together. And as you said, John, we have to work together because we can achieve so much more. So my thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Father Tom, do you want to put your share screen on?
Yeah, share. Good. Let's have a look. Is it going to go?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Let's just do. With this work like this.
We're only seeing half of it.
Right. Okay. Does that work?
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
A very good end to the afternoon. Thank you. And remember, everybody, we've got to pray. That's the most important thing. So thank you all very much.
Can I just request one small thing, which is if everybody opens their camera, I can take a screenshot of everybody.
Okay,
That would be lovely.
excellent idea.
Okay, great. Do your hair, put your best smiles on. So we still have a few who are still open. This is wonderful. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Happy climate action. Lovely. Thank you so much. We'll share that with everybody by email. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you very much.
What did she do there?
Thank you for organizing this. Well done.